I never thought I'd end up in court because of a tree, but not just any tree. This was a 150-year-old oak that stood tall on my land, a living monument older than every house in our neighborhood combined. It survived storms, heat waves, and decades of change until one woman, my HOA president, decided she hated it so much. She had it chopped down. And when that tree came crashing down, not onto my house but hers, she sued me for it. You think I'm joking? I wish I was. I moved into this so-called exclusive neighborhood because it looked perfect. Fresh paint, neat lawns, matching mailboxes, the kind of place that practically screams peaceful suburbia. But if you've ever lived under an HOA, you know that perfection comes with a price, and that price usually wears pink cardigans and carries a clipboard. Ours was named Karen. Karen was the self-appointed queen of our cul-de-sac. Blonde bob like a helmet, fake smile glued on, and that damn clipboard always in hand, her badge of power. She didn't just run HOA meetings, she ran them like courtroom trials. And she didn't enforce rules, she invented them. If she didn't like the color of your fence, suddenly it violated aesthetic uniformity. If she didn't like your mailbox, she called it a safety concern. At first I thought I could live with it. Keep my head down, mow my lawn, wave, politely ignore the nonsense. But there was one thing I didn't realize: Karen had a personal vendetta against my front yard, specifically against the oak tree that had been here long before either of us existed. That tree wasn't just a decoration, it was family history. My grandfather used to tell me stories about how settlers rested under its shade. My kids climbed its roots like a jungle gym. It was home to birds, squirrels, and the sound of wind that felt older than the neighborhood itself. But to Karen, it was a menace. Too many leaves, too much shade, too big, too ugly, blocking her precious view of the cul-de-sac. She brought it up in an HOA meeting one night, stood there in front of 30 people and announced, "That tree lowers property values." I laughed out loud. Probably not my smartest move. I told her, "Karen, that tree's been standing for 150 years. It's withstood hurricanes bigger than your ego." The room chuckled. Karen didn't. And from that moment she made it her personal mission to get rid of my oak. The next week I got a violation notice taped to my door. Neglected vegetation hazard. The next week another. Blocked visibility. Then another potential squirrel infestation. She was pulling reasons out of thin air. Every day a new slip under my wiper. Every week another letter from the HOA threatening fines. I tried to play nice. I even invited her over for coffee once, thought maybe if she saw how beautiful the tree was, she'd understand. She took one look and said, "If you cared about the neighborhood, you'd cut it down and install something tasteful, maybe a fountain." That's when it clicked. This wasn't about safety. It was about control. Still, I stayed calm. I figured rules and reason would protect me. I was wrong. Weeks turned into months. Karen kept escalating. She started taking pictures of my yard like some amateur detective. I caught her measuring the trunk with a tape measure one night. Another time, she called a city worker to inspect the hazard. The poor guy looked up, said, "Ma'am, that's a healthy oak," and walked away. Karen just glared at me like I'd bribed him. Then one evening she crossed the street and hissed, "If you don't do something about that tree, I will." I thought it was just another empty threat. I should have known better. A few mornings later, just before sunrise, I woke to the sound of a chainsaw. That high metallic whine ripped me out of bed. For 2 seconds, my half-asleep brain tried to rationalize someone doing yard work early maybe. But then I heard a second saw. Louder. Deeper. The house trembled. My stomach dropped. I ran outside barefoot, and what I saw made my blood go cold. 3 men, no uniforms, no permits, no safety gear, cutting into my oak. A rusty white pickup idled at the curb. And there she was, Karen, standing in her driveway like a general at dawn, arms folded over her clipboard, barking orders. "Get off my property," I yelled. "This tree's protected. You don't have a permit." The man with the cigarette in his mouth didn't even flinch. "Talk to your neighbor, ma'am, hired us." I turned to Karen. "What the hell are you doing?" She smiled, smug. "You had months to fix this hazard. The board authorized emergency removal." "The board did not authorize trespassing," I shouted. "You're breaking the law." "Call whoever you want," she said. "By the time they show up, the danger will be gone." I pulled out my phone and started filming. My hands were shaking. The chainsaws roared louder and chunks of wood fell like thunder. Birds fled the branches. The oak groaned a deep, painful sound that vibrated through my feet. And then it happened. The trunk gave way. Slow at first, then faster, and the tree leaned, falling not toward me, but toward Karen's house. "No," I screamed. It hit her roof like an explosion. The crunch of wood shattering glass alarms, blaring Karen's husband diving out of the way chaos. For a second nobody moved. Then Karen screamed, "My house. You did this. Your tree destroyed my home." Sirens arrived within minutes. Cops, firefighters, half the neighborhood in their pajamas. I showed the officers my footage, the unlicensed crew, the property markers, everything. The cop nodded, jaw tight. "You did the right thing filming," he said. "We'll handle it." Karen, meanwhile, was in full performance mode, crying and pointing at me. "He's been warned for months. His negligence caused this." "Ma'am," the officer said, "did you have a permit to remove the tree?" Her eyes flickered. It was urgent. That hesitation said it all. The cops took statements. The fire chief said her house was unsafe to enter. By noon, her roof was covered in tarps, and the HOA president showed up sweating bullets saying, "We had no knowledge of this." Karen looked like she wanted to strangle him on the spot. That night, after everyone left, I sat at my laptop, exhausted, furious, grieving. My oak was gone. That stump out front looked like a gravestone. But beneath the grief was something new: resolve. I backed up every file, every photo, every second of footage. Then I called a lawyer. He listened calm and sharp and said, "Don't worry. When she sues you, and she will, we'll be ready to counter." I didn't even get a week. 2 days later, a sheriff knocked on my door with an envelope. Karen was suing me. Negligence, property damage, emotional distress. She wanted me to pay for her hotel, her car repairs, her pain and suffering. I actually laughed out loud because the absurdity was too much. She had hired the guys who cut my tree, and now she was blaming me for her roof collapsing under it. For a while, I'll admit, I doubted myself. It's hard not to when the entire neighborhood whispers, when your mailbox fills with legal letters and your HOA acts like you're the problem. I even asked my wife, maybe I should have just cut it down. Maybe it wasn't worth all this. She looked at me and said, "If you give in to her now, you'll be cutting down more than a tree." That was all I needed. We went to work. We built a case. The footage, the arborist report, the city's no permit record. The testimony from those workers who admitted Karen paid them in cash, told them to start before sunrise, and lied about the property line. We had it all. During depositions, Karen sat across from me, hair perfect, smile brittle. Her lawyer asked her what happened that morning. She said, "I saw strange men cutting the tree. He must have hired them." My lawyer slid a photo across the table, her standing in her driveway, pointing at the workers. Time-stamped. "That's you, isn't it, Mrs. Peterson?" She stammered, I don't recall." "You recall enough to sue him, but not enough to remember hiring them," her lawyer objected. My lawyer just smiled. "We'll let the evidence speak." And it did. By the time we reached court, Karen's story had unraveled completely. She'd gone from the tree fell naturally to he hired unlicensed men to I was only protecting the community. Every version contradicted the last. When the trial began, she showed up in a navy blazer, no pink cardigan, probably on her lawyer's advice, trying to look respectable. Her opening argument was the same tired line. He ignored warnings. His negligence destroyed my home. My lawyer didn't bother with theatrics. He stood up calm and steady and said, "This is not a case of negligence. It's a case of trespass, destruction of property, and dishonesty." He played the video, the chainsaws, the shouting, Karen's voice on tape commanding, "Cut faster." You could feel the room shift. Then came the witnesses. The city arborist confirmed the tree was perfectly healthy. The workers testified under oath that Karen hired them, told them to avoid the neighbor, to do it early, and paid in cash. One even quoted her words, "No need for a permit, it's my land." When I took the stand, I told my story the way I'm telling it now. Plain, simple, honest. I told them how I was on vacation that day, how I came home to a pile of splinters and a neighbor screaming that it was my fault. Karen couldn't keep her composure. When it was her turn, she broke down crying, saying she was just trying to protect the neighborhood. My lawyer handed her a photo. "Is this you giving orders?" She froze. The whole courtroom went silent. "Yes," she whispered. The judge leaned back, expression unreadable, and finally said, Mrs. Peterson, you acted without consent, without permits, and without authority. You destroyed protected property. You are liable." Then he turned to me. "Mr. Martin, the court finds in your favor. Damages awarded $240,000, including replacement value legal costs and punitive damages." Karen gasped like she'd been punched. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. I just sat there exhaling months of tension. The story could have ended there, but karma had one more chapter. Karen's insurance refused to pay. The city ordered her to plant 6 new trees to replace the heritage oak she destroyed 6, and she had to maintain them for 3 years under inspection. I remember watching the nursery truck unload the saplings while she stood there fuming as workers dug holes in her yard. The woman who hated shade was legally forced to grow a forest. I didn't celebrate. I just watched from my porch, quiet. My kids and I planted a new oak sapling where the old one once stood. We named it Second Chance. Karen never apologized. She still lives across the street, still glares from her porch, still files the occasional petty complaint, but her clipboard doesn't carry the same power anymore. The neighborhood changed after that. People started standing up for themselves. The HOA rewrote its emergency rules. And for once, the word community actually meant something. Sometimes I sit on my porch, coffee in hand, staring at the stump that started it all. And I think about what that old oak taught me. Strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout or threaten or control. Real strength is quiet. It stands its ground ring by ring, no matter how many storms try to bring it down. So if someone ever tries to cut down what's rightfully yours, remember you don't have to scream louder. Just stand taller.